Around 65 million years ago, the Earth turned faster, days were a half hour shorter, and the continents we know today were beginning to take shape. The dinosaurs had been almost wiped out.
Almost wiped out. You are absolutely correct.
The age of mammals was dawning.
In fact, mammals also took a huge hit during the KPG extinction event.
And frogs the size of cats,
which somehow you got it correct. A Beelzebufo and a cat are about the same mass, so they're both about the same size.
Totally normal. They weren't the first frogs or anything. Frogs had been around for 180 million years.
Actually, they've been around for around 200 million years now.
Over time, not much about their body changed, except their size. Enter Beelzebufo, the baddest, meanest, and biggest frog that ever existed.
I remember there was another prehistoric frog that is even bigger than Beelzebufo, but I forgot what its name was.
Scientists found their first bone sample in Madagascar. It took them 15 years to piece together the whole skeleton. Step by step, they put the frog skeleton together, just like an ancient jigsaw puzzle.
They only tried to reconstruct the skeleton. Not the entirety of the skeleton is there. Like, there are lots of fossils, but not the entire skeleton has been found.
When they saw what they had found, a huge creature with a weird shield, they gave it its epic name. It's a mix of Greek and Latin, and it means armored frog from the abyss.
It's actually a portmanteau of Beelzebub, a Semitic deity whose name may be translated as Lord of Flies, and Buffo, Latin for toad.
Ooh! This guy didn't hop from one lily pad to another catching insects. Nah, that would be too tame. It liked to live in dry places and used a sit-and-wait hunting style. It blended in with its surroundings, waiting.
We're not talking about its bite force. That is in the title, huh?
Then, bam! It jumped out to grab its lunch. It had a huge head, an extremely wide mouth, I know what that's like, and powerful jaws.
But the title says this frog's bite is stronger than a wolf. Watch out.
With huge teeth. It spent its days snacking on lizards, mammals, smaller frogs, and maybe even baby dinosaurs.
Okay, so it got it correct once again. They may have preyed on baby dinosaurs.
Even though it was the size of a beach ball, it still caught a lucky break. It lived in Madagascar, safe from the large and dangerous dinosaurs that ruled over other parts of the world.
But there is also stuff like the Majungasaurus that could pose a threat.
The armor on its back was almost like a turtle shell. It was scary and strong enough to protect itself from smaller dinosaurs and crocodiles. Another reason for that armor was that it helped the frog survive in the dry heat. It was able to dig down and hide underground, away from the burning hot sun. The biggest frogs in Madagascar these days are just regular-sized frogs, a perfect mid-morning snack for Beelzebufo.
This is turning into one of those bright side videos where this guy's spitting out facts that have nothing to do with the title itself. At least this narrator is charming and iconic, unlike that one in that 8 dinosaurs that could be T-Rex in a fight.
The largest frog on Earth these days is the Goliath frog from West Africa. It also grows to the size of a small cat, but it isn't related to this awesome prehistoric beast. Now, the most famous frog on the planet these days is none other than Kermit. But he's not very big and doesn't eat other frogs, so we'll move on.
Okay, so I think they're joking about this one. This guy is just a cartoon frog and not really a frog.
Scientists discovered that Beelzebufo actually does have some living relatives, just not in Africa. Its big mouth gave it its name. It's the Pac-Man frog from South America. Even the biggest Pac-Man frogs are still 2 to 3 times smaller than their famous ancestors.
Well, not exactly. In fact, Beelzebufo is only slightly larger.
They have little horns on their heads, and they use the same sit-and-wait hunting tactics. Researchers use these frogs to figure out the bite force of their prehistoric relatives. They use 2 plates covered with leather. The frog bites down on the plates, which tells the researchers how strong their bite is. Long story short, Beelzebufo had a bite force of around 500 pounds.
So I scrolled through the video, and at no point were The video lives up to its title, comparing a frog's bite to a wolf, supposedly stronger, when in actuality they're quite similar.
Not bad, but a Nile crocodile's bite is 10 times stronger. Probably safer to avoid either of those guys. So how did these Pac-Man frogs reach South America? Well, millions of years ago, South America, Antarctica, and Africa were actually all smushed together in kind of a continental pie called Pangaea.
This is not how Pangaea looks, I can confirm that. And Pangaea broke apart at about 200 million years ago, transforming into Gondwana and Laurasia. South America, Africa, and Antarctica were part of Gondwana, as well as India and Australia.
Frogs could have hopped over via Antarctica, looking for food or a cozy place to live, and it used to be a much warmer place back then. This giant Madagascar frog was unique for sure, but it wasn't the only giant on Earth. If it had been alive earlier, it would have probably made friends with Megan Europsis. Not to be confused with Megan of Sussex.
You mean not to be confused with Meganura. Also, what a weird pronunciation you have for Meganeuropsis. But hey, Meganeuropsis is at least mentioned. However, scrolling through the entire video, it's now deviated from Beelzebufo itself.
It's the largest known insect to have ever existed. It looked something like a dragonfly, a big one. Its wings stretched about the length from your shoulder to your fingertips.
To your fingertips? Its wingspan is just 71 centimeters, or 28 inches.
It was flying around way before.
Oh, we're now showing a dragon flying above the mountains. Okay, then.
Before flying dinosaurs had come along. Back then, there was way more oxygen around. That's why this dragonfly was able to grow so big. Another reason for its size? There was no one else flying around looking for a tasty dragonfly snack. It had time to develop dangerous teeth and figure out how to fly around like a pro. Megatherium americanum, the great beast from America,
Wow, what a sudden switch of topics.
was the ancestor of today's sloths. These days, sloths get a bad rap for being super slow and kind of boring.
One exception is that sloth from Zootopia being really funny.
But the sloths of the past walked on two legs and lived on the ground. This giant sloth was as tall as a giraffe when standing on its back legs, as heavy as a hippo.
In fact, it is way bigger than a hippo. Megatherium is around 4 tons in mass, while a bull hippo is around 1,500 kilograms.
And looked kind of like a bear. It had huge claws, but was most likely a vegetarian. Early humans probably saw it roaming around. It only went extinct about 10,000 years ago. Giant armadillos were cruising around back then too.
Now we're simply talking about armadillos. That has nothing to do with the title itself. Absolutely nothing.
They used to be the size of a beetle, a Volkswagen beetle. Just like today's armadillos, they had a huge tough shell made of bone and was super heavy. They looked pretty scary.
I would especially be terrified if I see a Doedicurus roaming around, because it has a spiked tail club that can be used to swing.
But they were just harmless vegetarians.
That's if I managed to pet them or something. Most of the time I wouldn't even try at all.
Regular prehistoric kangaroos had flat faces
I'm assuming you're talking about Procoptodon.
and forward-pointing eyes. They didn't hop around at all. They weighed as much as a horse.
Even the estimate for light riding horses is 380 kilograms, which is bigger than the largest species of Procoptodon, Procoptodon gallia, weighing in around 240 kilograms.
And were so bulky they could only walk around on two legs. They used their one large toe to move quickly through woods and plains, looking for delicious leaves and shrubs. They might have even used their tail as a fifth limb. Other than that, they have a lot in common with modern kangaroos. But Diprotodon,
Okay, so I'm going to correct myself with that kangaroo's pronunciation. Procoptodon. I think that right side, Diprotodon, whatever right side pronounce it, that's acceptable. Diprotodon, Diprotodon.
the largest kangaroo-type thing ever discovered, was about the size of a rhino.
Diprotodon is just a distant relative of the kangaroo and koala. Also, Diprotodon can grow to as large as 3,500 kilograms in mass. A record-sized specimen of Indian rhinoceros was around 4,000.
It had strong, furry legs, just like a kangaroo.
Now, its closest relatives are actually wombats and koalas. So if you really want to misinform your audience, call Diprotodon a mega koala instead of a mega kangaroo.
But this guy wasn't into jumping around all over the place. It spent most of the time munching on bushes and lounging by a lake or river. Sounds good to me. The biggest shark that ever existed was, Megalodon. Imagine a great white shark. Now shorten the nose, flatten the jaw, and stretch out those pointy teeth.
Or you could simply make its body look more robust and then huge up the size.
This thing was enormous, as long as a bowling lane and as heavy as a blue whale.
No, in fact, the largest megalodon is just over half the size of the blue whale.
Female megalodons were most likely twice as large as male ones. Even though it's long gone, its food is still around. Giant sea turtles, seals, porpoises, smaller whales. Delicious. The Megalodon probably had the most powerful bite of all time, and it was so big it needed plenty of food every day. Scientists have found Megalodon fossils off the coast of every continent except Antarctica. Sharks don't have regular bones except for their sharp teeth. It's one of the reasons why they're so fast and skillful in the water.
At this point, I shouldn't even complain about Brightside clickbait titles anymore. The only thing they're doing is spitting out facts that don't have anything to do with their titles. It's just, I don't know what to say anymore.
Giant scorpions used to rule over lakes and rivers, and even swam in the ocean about 400 million years ago.
Now, scorpions existed all the way back at 435 million years ago during the early Silurian. Are you talking about a scorpion named Brontoscorpio?
They had claws the size of bowling pins.
I hope you're not talking about Pomonoscorpius, because it would be wrong, because the Pomonoscorpius lived in the Carboniferous.
By comparing them to other scorpions, they calculated that this giant sea scorpion used to be about twice as big as a fridge.
Oh, so you're talking about a sea scorpion, not a true scorpion.
If you include its claws. It most likely grew so big for the same reason as these monster dragonflies.
Look, they may look weird, but in the end, they're still animals, prehistoric ones.
They were much higher levels of oxygen in the air back then.
The Yagkilopterus lived during the early Devonian period, at a time where the oxygen content on Earth's atmosphere is lower than that of today.
Ancient saltwater crocodiles were almost the size of a bus and as heavy as an elephant.
What ancient saltwater crocodiles are you talking about? Sarcosuchus? Sarcosuchus is not a crocodile. It resembles more of a gharial. Gharial is a crocodilian. Sarcosuchus, still not a crocodilian.
They lived about 130 million years ago.
It lived from 133 to 112 million years ago.
And were at the top of the food chain. So, what did they eat? Pretty much anything that got a little too close. A few million years after the fall of the dinosaurs, a new gigantic beast took over. It was the Titanoboa, the largest snake the world had ever seen. It was as long as a telephone pole and as heavy as a giraffe. It behaved like a present-day anaconda, spending most of its time in the water, munching on anything it could find.
Look at that goofy animation that we just saw.
The largest lizard ever, the great-grandpa of the famous Komodo dragon, was called Megalania. It had super dangerous teeth equipped with some nasty venom.
Look, the reason why it's venomous is because it has venom glands that pump anticoagulants into the prey, not because the teeth can inflict septic shock.
That makes it the largest venomous animal ever. Some of the largest birds of all time lived around 50 million years ago.
The largest bird is the Vorombe titan of the elephant birds, reaching up to 860 kilograms in mass.
Think of an albatross with a seriously dangerous mouth. Their wingspan was around the size of 3 NBA players.
Oh, so you're talking about Pelagonus sandersi. While it may have a longer wingspan than the Argentavis is still the larger one. The Argentavis is the largest flying bird.
Now, it wasn't easy finding out about these huge birds and their lifestyles. Researchers took fossils all the way from Antarctica to California to compare them to bones of related species. Back then, Antarctica was much warmer than today. It was covered with ferns and was home to a bunch of animals: marsupials, frogs, ancient penguins, albatrosses, and even falcons. I'm not kidding, that's how the video ends. What a clickbait paleontology video. Spoiler alert, next video is going to be much more of a pain to deal with. Thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it.